like I said, I got to sit down and watch a ton of wrestling this week. I watched Raw, I watched SmackDown, I watched NXT, I watched Dynamite, I watched Halloween Havoc. I got to take in more wrestling than even I like. From a casual fan point of view, it was too much wrestling, but when I had nothing else to do, it was great to do. But one thing that gave me the opportunity to do was really kind of solidify my position as far as like, I am a WWE guy. I make no bones about it. I have no problem with AEW at all. I actually have pieces, there's bits and I can tune in and tune out of AEW and find the things I enjoy. But one thing I was able to do is in watching MJF these last couple weeks, I've tuned in for MJF. It's hard for me to debate at this point that there's anybody better on a microphone than MJF. And every time I say this, I get pushback, right? He's not as good as you say he is, or he's not as good as you think he is. Mm-hmm. My problem, then without going all nerd and like New Japan and all this shit, we're talking about the big two. Even NXT, you could throw it in there. But give me names. Throw me names of people who are as good or better on a microphone than MJF or who are even who just kind of stand above him. You give me those names, people, because I don't see them. So the question I kind of asked was, is there anybody better on a microphone in all of pro wrestling than MJF? So I had to sit down and I had to do what I do. And I came up with, I think, 6 names that I will allow somebody to say to me that are better than MJF or equal, not better, they're equal to MJF on a microphone.
Okay.
I didn't put Chris Jericho on this list. I feel like Chris Jericho's gotten a little lazy lately. From the Jericho stuff that I've watched with the Appreciation Society and stuff like that, it's not interesting to me. So at this point in time, I'm not putting Jericho on this list. If he decides to kind of step back up and re-step his game up, I'm willing to do it. But as far as I'm concerned, right now, Jericho's being lazy. So I'll talk about these people here. And it's, to start off, I'm going to start off with Seth Rollins. And it's hard to argue for me against Seth Rollins. When Seth has a microphone, people fucking pay attention, right?
Yeah.
And he can tend, my only knock on Seth Rollins, he can tend to be slightly repetitive from week to week, right? He relies heavily on this like laugh and his character work. And maybe like his character work is a good thing and a bad thing. Okay. Because he relies so heavily on his character work that sometimes I don't think he gets to speak from the heart. But every time he has a microphone, like WWE is undoubtedly a better show to watch. And without a doubt, I'd say that WWE, he is the most trusted individual with a mic. Like I think there's times that they go, we got 10 minutes to fill. Give Seth a microphone and let him go talk. Okay. And he tends to kind of take crowds on a journey, if you notice, right? He can kind of get the crowd behind him, and then he shits on them, and he's turned the crowd, and he can wave his hands, and the crowd will sing with him. So I think, I mean, I will argue right now, I will stand toe to toe with anybody. MJF and Seth Rollins are both masters of the microphone. I'm not putting one above the other. Secondly, I'm going to present to you, Lauren, Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns, this is going to be controversial, right? Because you're going to have a million people go, Roman Reigns can't cut a promo. He's not that. I think that people misunderstand Roman Reigns' ability to cut a promo because it's not his talking ability. It's not. It's his smugness. It's his facial ability. It's his understanding of timing. It's his understanding of simple phrases that he can say to a crowd to get a reaction. It's as simple as acknowledge me. True. It is. He has figured out how to work a crowd without saying much. And I don't think that he gets the credit for that, right? Roman Reigns isn't hilarious.
That is interesting that you said that, because that was the first thing that popped in my mind was like, he doesn't talk though.
Yeah. But he's not hilarious, right? And he's not, it's not like he understands more about promos than MJF. It's not that he's just super intellectual. What it is to me is that more than anybody in pro wrestling, I think Roman Reigns understands how a promo affects his character. Yes. What he can do. And it's probably a lot to do with Paul Heyman, who's on my list. But like, I think he just understands that when he comes out, all it takes is an acknowledgement. All it takes is a pause. All it takes is a smug look to the crowd, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes Roman Reigns, but you have to credit that. You have to give him credit for that ability because it's obviously a talent.
Because definitely not everybody can do that
No,
at all.
no. There's lots of people who rush through their promos.
And he's definitely learned that, I guess, through the years.
You
Because
can
seeing
tell.
him in the beginning to now.
You can tell. And he talks
Totally
about
different.
it on Impulsive, right? The art of silence, right? Of even if 10 seconds is good, 20 seconds may be better.
And silence is something that people feel uncomfortable with.
Exactly.
And so learning that skill and being okay with it and knowing how to like build with that is amazing.
And it's crowd manipulation, right? He knows when he gets quiet that the crowd is going to get loud. Yeah. And that only works when you're interesting.
Yes.
If you're just some idiot, you can't do that. My next candidate, and this is cheating a little bit, but it's obvious, right? Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman can take a match from one level to another level with a microphone. And if there is a god on the microphone, a god tier, it's Paul Heyman. And he's one that I would say is probably better than everybody on the list.
Oh, fuck yeah.
But
he owns that.
But that's what he does.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit of cheating. The dark horses that I have on my list here, Lauren, Kevin Owens.
Okay.
And I continue to say this. I don't think there's anybody better than Kevin Owens at anything in professional wrestling. And I stand by that. I think given the right situation, Kevin Owens can cut a promo just as good or better than MJF. Just as good as better than Roman Reigns. Just as good or better than Seth Rollins. He's just not always in that position. I still hold to my statement that I think Kevin Owens is the best all-around professional wrestler in the business, in any company. He's the best worker. He puts in the most effort, has the most charisma, night in, night out, just everything. All around the board, like Swiss Army knife, utility, he does everything. And that goes just as big on a microphone. Every time he has a microphone, I pay attention. I think that he's witty. He says a lot of funny shit. He can be comedic, but then he can come out and cut a promo on Theory where he yells and screams and gets in his face, and we pay attention. Yeah. So I think he's one. The other dark horse has to be Sami Zayn, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think that he's easy to forget, but nobody is comedically better than Sami Zayn. His ability to gain sympathy with crowds, his ability to make crowds laugh, his ability to make other wrestlers laugh. Now, I'm going to tell you one here, just thought of this. R-Truth doesn't get the opportunity to do it, but he and Sammy are that same character.
So what about The Miz?
The Miz is not given the opportunity to do what the Miz has, and the Miz is capable of it. I just don't think the Miz is not in that position anymore.
Okay.
I think, and I'm going to talk about this in a second. Lastly, I have Bray Wyatt.
Ooh.
And I think Bray Wyatt is on another level of promo and mic ability because of his intelligence. He's just intellectually on kind of a higher level. I think he functions on a higher level, kind of on that like genius level. And sometimes I think to even his detriment, what he does goes over the head of casual fans and goes over the head of everybody. Sometimes he's too intelligent, but I don't think that you can take away from the fact that on a microphone, he's great.
True.
Right.
True.
So, but back to what you were saying about like, what exactly were you saying?
Miz.
The Miz and that kind of stuff. I think it's a lot of this is opportunity, right? It's the position you're put in because I argue back and forth that MJF would be fine in WWE. I don't know that he is. The more I watch AEW, the more I'm convinced MJF belongs in AEW. That's where he should be. And rightfully so. I think he'll get lost in WWE. I think he would become a Miz, a guy who's kind of castrated by the company. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but I mean that when MJF is allowed to just say whatever the fuck he wants, it makes him dangerous, right?
Yes.
And he's willing to say things that, like, in front of Renee, what's her name? Renee Renee Young is what I'm going to call her,
that's
right?
what she is to me, too.
He's willing to talk about Moxley and make fun of Moxley in front of Renee Young. He's willing to say things in front of people that are a little bit uncomfortable. He's willing to talk about people's dead dad. He's willing to cross that line. And that's part of what makes the MJF experience so good, is that he doesn't give a fuck. He's not interested in being liked per se. He's just interested in making the product better. And so we talked about this at lunch a little bit about there's people in the company who want MJF to be a babyface. That's fine. I don't think that's a problem, but I do think they have to be careful, because what you can't do is you cannot castrate MJF.
Well, so like, what makes somebody a baby face? I'm still kind of confused, because like, you can be a baby face and an asshole or a heel. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that is that good question, because that's the line that I think everybody struggles is so many people want these so clearly defined babyface and heels, right? Babyface just has to mean this is the good guy. Heel just has to mean this is the bad guy. But I think it's more about intention and antics than it is about good guy versus bad guy. I think that MJF can be a babyface and still be an asshole. I think it's possible, but I think I was explaining to you a little bit earlier, MJF coming out to save Moxley and live up to the word that he said, that is a babyface tactic.
Yeah.
Right. It's babyface characteristic. I don't think it makes him babyface, but I think it's characteristics. And I do think more and more in 2022, these lines are blurred all the time. I still do believe there's a need for babyface and heel. But to answer your question, to me, a babyface doesn't have to be a good guy, but it's a person who wrestles with better intentions, right? Their plan is not to come out to the ring and cheat.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas a heel, someone like Roman Reigns to me is kind of the opposite, right? Because he's kind of he's a well-liked character, right? Mm-hmm. Like, crowds like him and they want to chant. But you know, when Roman and the Bloodline come out, they have every intention of using heel tactics.
Yeah.
They make no bones about that. Like, make sure Roman gets the win. Whether it's Solo showing up, whether it's the Usos, whether it's Sami Zayn, heel tactics to me are they come out with this intention to cheat.
Yeah.
To do something kind of underhanded. And last thing here, I actually saw somebody, I don't remember who it was, who said they didn't think that MJF could have stood up to like the Attitude Era and The Rock and Stone Cold back in that time. And to me, that's a bad comparison, because when you start comparing people from now to back then, the rules were different, right? And the rules are different. It's like comparing The Miz and MJF or Roman Reigns and MJF or Seth Rollins and MJF. The comparison's tough because, like I said, WWE characters are castrated. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but they have limitations on what they can go out and say. They can't talk about your dead dad.
True, that's
right?
very true.
They have things they're not allowed to say, whereas AEW's the fucking Wild West, and you can say whatever you want about whoever, and everybody's just got to deal with the fallout and the consequences. So I don't think that's fair. Do I think MJF is talented enough to get in the ring and cut a promo with The Rock? Sure. I also think that The Rock has this likability factor and this kind of magnetism that makes it hard for anybody. We saw it with CM Punk. The intellectual style of promo doesn't work well with The Rock, because The Rock's just going to say something real fucking funny and goofy, and then the crowd's going to start to chant it, right?
Yeah.
It's The Miz is good at this, right? Tiny balls and things like that.
Definitely.
The Miz is going to fucking the Rock is going to take something you said, twist it up, and give it back to you, and then the crowd is going to fucking use it against you. So I think, to me, though, MJF is just one of those people. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, he is the most interesting thing in AEW. If he's not AEW champion by the end of the year, they've completely dropped the fucking ball. And I just think that, like, he is the best promo in pro wrestling because of his situation and because of his skills.
Definitely.
I think that's the truth.